Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you are. If you just joined, you haven't missed anything yet. This is Dave Rosendahl here. Today, we're going to be sharing with you 3 insights or 3 secrets, as we call them, to this Opti social framework that helps organizations create sales, create conversations with prospects and customers to fill pipeline and generate revenue. Really, at the end of the day, that's what all of this does. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, as we were getting warmed up here, once you learn how to do this, I told the group that was here earlier about this idea. Once you know how to do this, and I know that it can be confusing, it can seem difficult, but once you have the roadmap, once you have this strategy, you'll be ahead of many of your competitors. But there are a couple key things that you have to do, and that's what we want to share with you today. So every Friday, we gather this community. If this is your first time with us, please drop the word new in the chat so we know who the new friends are here with us. And we're focused on helping you learn how to market and sell and lead your organizations through this challenging climate. And the way we do that is by bringing you folks like Mackenzie and others onto the show who are on the leading edge of OptiChannel social marketing and selling. We bring you people who are actually making this happen so that you can understand how to apply this for your organization. And there's a lot of different types of companies here. Who are my printers? If you're a print organization, drop the word print in Facebook, in LinkedIn, and Zoom. I want to know who my printers are. We have a lot of printers with us. We've been working with commercial printers and direct mailers for many, many years, and we love the print community. So drop the word print if you're in the print world. We also work with a lot of agencies, digital marketing services companies. So if you're an agency or if you're a marketing services company, drop that in the chat, Zoom, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you are. And then there's a lot of B2B, B2C organizations that join us from around the world who are embracing this philosophy and who join these live events to learn from this community and to learn from the folks that we bring on the show for you. So let us know if we haven't hit you as a printer, as an agency, what kind of company you are. Put that there in the chat so that we can welcome you into today's session. So as I mentioned, we're all about bringing you value. And I know that times are tough for many. If you're leading your organization or you're marketing or selling, we've been through a tough season, right? And things are still tough for a lot of organizations. So I want to make sure you continue to get this information. I'm going to give you one opportunity to multitask right now. In order for us to continue to stay connected, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So grab your cell phone, like I have here, and open up your camera app and go ahead and point it at the QR code there on the screen. If you've been with us before, you know that I often ask, how many of you was this a new revelation for, that you could actually point your camera at a QR code and jump right to a URL?
Without an app, right? That's the key,
yeah, that's
right?
key.
I was talking to someone, they're like, well, you can always do it on your phone, but I do it on an app. And I said, the app is no longer needed, right? Let's delete that from holding up some storage on your phone.
Exactly. So if this is new to you, if you didn't know you could do this with QR code and with your phone, Mackenzie, you got to put your flip phone away. It doesn't work with your flip phone. Bad joke, right?
He's starting early. He's starting early.
Yeah, starting already. Most modern phones, folks, have this capacity. So if you print direct mail or signage, POP, things like that, that you want to connect the consumer to some sort of online experience, it's much easier. There's much less friction now. So I put that up there. When you do that, it should connect you to me on LinkedIn. Mackenzie, drop your URL, obviously, there in the chat as well. I want to make sure you stay connected with Mackenzie as well. So in case this is your first time with us, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Dave Rosendahl, president here at Mindfire. I'll let Mackenzie introduce herself in a moment here. Our mission here, our goal is to help organizations that are looking to connect with their customers and connect with their prospects using modern marketing strategies and techniques. So if you're in the position of saying, okay, look, I know I need to do better because what used to work just doesn't seem to work anymore, you're in the right spot. That's what our mission is. So Mackenzie is here with me, as I mentioned. You're going to hear from her in a minute. We are live across LinkedIn, Facebook, and Zoom. And Mackenzie, why don't you do this? Can you drop my cell phone number in there?
I can.
Yeah. So folks, you'll know more in a second here why I give you my cell phone. I'd love for you to text me at that number. And you'll see here in a moment why I do that. But we want to keep this interactive, as I mentioned. So we're going to stay pumped. We're going to stay positive, and we're going to try to give you a lot of information in a short amount of time. But Mackenzie, you were mentioning this last week. Look, 50%, 51% of this is us. 49% is you. So stay engaged and keep those chat comments coming in because it helps us do a better job for you.
Yep.
All right. Everyone ready? Give me a yes in the
We're
chat
ready.
wherever you are if you're ready. You ready, Mac?
I'm ready.
And I call Mackenzie Mac in case anybody's wondering. I'm not talking to my Macintosh.
And if you end up talking to me, you can also call me Mac. No worries at all. Like, that's a question that often comes up.
Am I allowed to call you Mac? Yes, you can call her Mac
Totally
as well.
cool.
So let's get started. If you're ready, drop the yes. Give me the yes there in the chats. I see from Penny, from Brett, from Melissa saying, woo. All right. Sylvia is coming in from,
We're
I think,
ready.
Barcelona, as
Yep.
always, I think. Give us the yeses there. Folks, as you came into the session today, as you signed up, we asked you what you're struggling with. And there seems to be three trends kind of pervasive across all the industries that we're talking to today. The first thing that I heard from a lot of you, the first thing that I'm seeing as we work with organizations like yours is that you're feeling like and you're sensing that your prospects and your customers are, in some cases busier than ever, meaning that if it was hard to reach them before COVID and the pandemic kind of changed how we communicate, getting them to reply to email or to answer the phone now is even harder, right? How many of you resonate with that? Drop a 1 in the chat. That's the first trend that we're seeing loud and clear as we engage with you, our community. How many of you resonate with that? Drop a 1 in the chat. Let me see those ones. Second thing we're hearing. As much as we like to think that our customers, the people that have done business with us before, remember the services that we can provide them, right? We know what our services are, and we think, well, of course our customers know as well, right? But as much as we like to think that, how often are you finding that your customers are placing orders from your competitors for things that you can provide them? Even more frustratingly, sometimes it's stuff that you have sold them in the past. Who does that resonate with? Give me a 2 in the chat if that's something that you've sensed, if that's something that you're seeing, if that's something that you're frustrated by, right? That's the second trend. The third thing that we're seeing, and I'm kind of personalizing this to the print friends that we have here with us, but this is true for many organizations. That broadly speaking, our customers, if you're wrestling with them and how they look at you because they don't view you as an innovator anymore, if they're saying, hey, you're not bringing new ideas to me, if they're not asking you for input on new strategic initiatives, and that's frustrating to you or that's keeping you from having the conversations that you want to have with your customers and your prospects, this is another thing that we're hearing. How many of you drop a 3 in the chat if that's something that you're hearing? Who identifies with that? I see them coming in. So what's the answer? That's what we want to dive into today. If any of these resonate with you, you're not alone. There is a solution to this problem. That's what we want to talk and share with you about today. And we know without a doubt that what we're sharing today, again, we're not bringing you hypothetical learnings. We're not bringing you hypothetical frameworks. These are things that we use, that the organizations that we work with have employed, that we've taught to use, right, Mackenzie?
Yep.
Companies of all shapes and sizes, we know, especially now, that this stuff works. And our goal is simple, to show you how the OptiChannel model resolves many of those issues that you just all identified with. Our goal is to help you learn that model, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in sales, whether you own or run the organization, without having to spend money on ads, without having to hire more people, without having to, become a super slick salesperson and always be pitching. There is a different way. And when employed correctly, you should at least be able to double your lead flow. Does that make sense? Give me an X in the chat if you're following that. I see you nodding your head, Mackenzie, so I know you get it.
I'm following.
Now, our goal here is to make this very concrete for you. And let me bring this down, into the dirt here, so to speak. The reality is many of you are looking for leads. Many of you are looking for sales opportunities. The other end of that reality is that you're missing dozens, hundreds, thousands of leads out there because you're just not in the right places. That's a tenet of OptiChannel. You'll learn more about that in a second. You have to know where your customers are hanging out. And often it's not the places that you're comfortable hanging out in. We don't get to choose. As an example, Here's somebody looking for direct mail, happens to be in Canada. Who are my Canadian friends? Let me know if you're in Canada. This is the reason why I gave you my cell phone number. Drop it again, Suzanne, Mike, and everybody else. Drop that in there. I want you to text me. And when we find leads like this, we'll send them to you. That's part of our commitment to you. But I also want you to learn how to do this on your own. It's so frustrating and so, well, it's motivating, I should say. When we come across these leads, hey, we're not a print company, but these are things that you could be following up on, that just because you don't know how to use this process and this system, you're missing out on this opportunity. So text me if you want to be put on a list where we notify you of those things. As we get to the end of today's session, we're going to give you as much as we can in the 90 minutes that we have. We will give you an opportunity if you want to learn how to apply this more comprehensively within your organization. If you want additional resources to help you get up and running with this kind of philosophy and technology, we will give you some next steps at the end of today's session. All right. The key, what I want to share with you today in the next 90 minutes or so, is I want to show you how OptiChannel social selling helps address those three things that we talked about. And it's the key that many of you are missing to creating more leads and sales. Now, Mackenzie, I know we have a special gift for folks if they stay to the end. What's that?
Yeah, so as Dave mentioned a few minutes ago, we're planning on being here 90 minutes and we will stay here with you. Don't worry, we won't leave if your questions are not answered. So we will stay with you. But we have this awesome gift that actually someone who went through our trainings previously put together. So she compiled this guide about how you can optimize your social engagement. And so if you stay to the end, we will give you this gift. So she put a lot of time and effort into it. It's an amazing resource and we'd love to share that with you when you stay.
Perfect. So let's get started, folks. Give me an X if you're on the starting line here, ready to get going. You're excited and you're pumped. Give me an X wherever you are. What we're gonna do is I want to step back for a moment, Mackenzie, and give you an opportunity to kind of help us understand how this model crystallized. And I want to personalize it to our journey here at Mindfire.
Yep.
So let's step back, and I want to ask you some questions and have you help us share that story, so that we can start to learn the model from a very hands-on perspective, being you, someone who's been able to live through this transformation.
Yeah, so thank you, Dave, for the introduction. As you said, we're going to kind of tell you our story because one of the things we want to make sure that you understand is, like you said, we're bringing you stuff that we actually experienced and we're able to overcome. So it's not just theoretical, right? And so just to kind of tell you that story, as many of you know, and you see us saying, hey, printers, agencies, we've been serving what we call service providers. So the print community, agencies, marketing companies, and also thousands of other B2B and B2C brands like the ones that you see on the screen right here. And what we do is so different now that we have this really incredible opportunity where companies, big OEMs like HP and other big companies pay us tens of thousands of dollars to actually present this material, teach their customers and teach their teams how to employ it. And while we've in the more recent times been super successful and we're able to help many, many companies adopt and learn these modern marketing strategies, it wasn't that long ago, and Dave, I'm sure you remember, that our situation was much different. And so what we want to do is sort of provide some context by, as you can see here, rolling back the tape, right? And so we want to sort of just rewind to a point where just a few years back, we were experiencing some challenges, and those challenges enabled us to uncover this framework. And so we want to just share this with you because we think it's really important. And as you can see here, this is actually a picture we took back then when our engineering team was working on one of our products, which is called Studio. Maybe you know it. It was really challenging because we knew that we had this incredible product that was super powerful, yet we were hearing a completely different story from our marketing and sales team. So they were saying, we couldn't reach people. We send emails, no one's replying. We have this great product and no one's interested. So yes, we were using social, we were doing some of the things, but no one was reaching out to us. It was like crickets out there. And none of us at the company could reconcile, how do we have this amazing product and service? How are there people out there that need it? Yet we're not getting the attention that the product and the service really deserved, or what we felt deserved.
That might be something that would be good to hear from the audience. Does anybody else identify that with that feeling? Do you feel like you've got this great service, this great product, this thing that really can help your customers, and yet here you are and nobody's asking you for it? Anybody identify with that? Give me a yes in the chat. Yeah, let's
and
see who identifies with
infuriating.
that. Or are we the only ones?
No, it looks like people totally understand. And we know it's an infuriating feeling. And I like this picture because we heard continuously. So not only did we feel it in the leadership team, but we heard our sales team saying, hey guys, we have this database, right? We have a CRM with actually tens of thousands of names that we've collected over the years. But our sales team was like, there's no one to call. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel. No one's responding. Does this sound familiar? Are we the only ones, And so these problems started to compound, and so did our teams. Dave's he was really upset about it. And really everyone in our team was trying to figure out, okay, we got to figure this out. What's going on, right? And so I just want to be clear. It's not like we weren't doing anything, right? We were doing things. We were going to trade shows. And in fact, if you've ever run a trade show or exhibited, it's tens of thousands of dollars to go and exhibit. And we would get some people that were interested, right? We'd talk to people and they'd be like, okay, yeah, this sounds good. But again, we weren't having consistent interest coming to us on a regular basis, not like we felt our products and service deserved based on what they were. And so we really were at a point where we were pretty desperate. And we needed to figure out a way that we could create demand for our awesome products and services so that we could stay alive, so that we could feed our team members, so that we could grow, and so that we could help you. And so with that,
Yeah, I remember those times clearly, Mac. You said I was pretty, I forget the word you used, but I had to laugh because it was a little more serious than that, right? In terms of how I felt inside. I was scared, right? As business leaders, as business owners, many of you know that feeling. And sometimes you let your head go to that spot where you're thinking, what if there's something so wrong here that it can't be fixed? What the heck's going on? And it's not unlike the feeling that a lot of us have felt over the past 12 months as the world has just, changed dramatically. The stuff that's happened in 12 months is just incredible. And that kind of sensation was a similar sensation to the one that we were having during this period of time. Now, Mac, you mentioned like we were doing trade shows and stuff. What other things were we doing around that time that were kind of more the traditional marketing methods?
Yeah, so we were doing all the traditional or the quote unquote right things with no results, right? So we were exhibiting at trade shows. You can see our booth over there. We were sending out emails. We were trying to post on social, all the usual stuff in the usual way that we thought was working, right? But it wasn't.
Yep. I remember from my vantage point, at least, that, and I've shown this picture to the community before, but this is a really personal moment for me. I remember this. This was February 24th. It was actually my daughter, the little blondie here in the middle. It was her birthday. We took her to Disneyland, and we loaded up the kids. And I'm the kind of guy that is always taking pictures. You'll learn more about that in a second. I had my cell phone. I snapped a picture of where we had parked, and as we were walking from where we had parked to the to Disneyland itself, I remember that I was pretending to take pictures of my kids, but I was actually texting back to the office asking how our sales were doing. So I was pretending to not look at my phone to be texting, but to be taking pictures because I was so concerned about the business climate. Maybe you know that feeling. If you do, drop an X in the chat if you know what that's like. It's like literally, for me, I was at the happiest place on earth, right? But inside, I was worried sick. Couldn't enjoy my family. Couldn't enjoy those moments. Maybe you felt that, where you can't be with your friends and your family, or you are and you're smiling on the outside like I am here, but on the inside, you're worried sick. If you know that feeling, give me a yes in the chat. I want to know that I'm not the only one there. I'm being as honest and transparent as I can. It's a terrible feeling. So what did we do from that point then, Mac?
Yeah, so here's really what happened. Remember a few seconds ago, I told you that we were using some of those fairly standard marketing practices, right, and strategies. And at that time, Dave, you and I took over the marketing operations, right? Actually, Dave took it over and said, hey, Mackenzie, let's come try to figure this out. And let's first start by looking at what we're doing and analyzing what we're doing. And there was actually a surprising few things that happened, which gave us some hope, right? There were actually some rays of light. So some of the things that we were doing as we started to look at them, realized like, oh, okay, actually there's some life in here, right? Yeah. And the stuff that was really performing at that time was utilizing valuable content, really just in its most basic form, content marketing. And so what we would do is we'd take valuable content, we'd create it, and we'd share it with our audience. And so we started to put some time and effort into those, and it worked to a degree, right? Meaning we started to get leads in, people were responding. But we quickly realized, and I remember this because it was us, or me up at midnight trying to do this stuff, and you trying to work on it here and there, everywhere you could. And the significant problem that this presented to us was that creating content like this, that's valuable, that's rich in content, is time consuming. It's expensive. It takes a lot of energy. And so not only was it that, but it also required a lot of special skills like HTML, which at the time I didn't know. And I'm Googling, how do I make this text bold at 12:05 a.m. in the morning? You needed marketing, editing, copywriting, all these different things that just didn't allow us the time that we needed to speed and iterate through this process.
I remember during that time, Mackenzie, on my side of the fence, I was thinking to myself, like, there's a lot of pressure on us to figure this out, right? On one hand, we have our marketing and sales operation that was saying, hey, we have no leads. On the other hand, we have this thing that seems to be working, but it's onerous in terms of its requirement on our time and our money. In fact, when a lot of you came into this session, I asked you what your number one challenge is with, social marketing and selling, and probably half of you said it was creating content. So I know you know what we're talking about here. Now, if I can, Mackenzie, for a moment, let me interject into your story. I have shared this with the community before, but I thought it would be interesting to kind of take a step back and help us understand how the idea really began to crystallize that we were onto something, but we were looking at it in kind of the wrong way. And I pulled this picture out of the archive here. This red arrow is pointing to a spot where I was walking into Target to get, of all things, diapers for our daughter that had just been born. And as I was walking in, some of you heard this story before, but I remember distinctly as I was walking into Target, I saw somebody out of the corner of my eye that was clearly homeless. And I remember thinking, when you and I were doing this work together, Mackenzie, I remember thinking back to this experience with, his name was actually Dave, just like mine, right? Because in that moment, I had a conversation with Dave that was really transformative. I'll tell you more about that in a second, but the one thing that really stood out to me, that really impacted me, was that here are two guys named Dave, and the margin between the two of them, the thing that separates the two of them, is razor thin. In other words, I could easily have been him. I could easily have been in his situation. And that feeling really shook me. I remember I ran home. I started writing. As you know, Mackenzie, I like to process things by writing, right? And I put it on my blog for some strange reason. I published it on my personal blog. I shared how we spent time. Actually, I ran into a buddy here. You can see him. This is Caleb, my friend Caleb over here. We ran into each other here, and we actually spent time with Dave. We bought him some shoes. We took him to Five Guys Burgers. I don't know how to pluralize that. Who likes Five Guys? And I took these pictures, and I posted them on a blog. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, I continued hanging out with Dave. I even took some video with him, because what I started to find was that the community was reacting to this content.
Yeah.
And the thing that really surprised me, here's a little snapshot of my blog I pulled here for the meeting here. Two things happened that really surprised me. Number one, people started walking up to me with wads of cash. Not for me, but for Dave. They would say, hey, your story really touched me. Can you give this to Dave next time you see him? The second thing that was almost even more surprising was that people were asking me about Mindfire. We're an enterprise software company. I couldn't connect how this story of my time with homeless Dave, as I came to kind of refer to him as, would intersect with people being interested about Mindfire. And so if I jump back to where we were, Mackenzie, in this time that you're describing, I distinctly remember thinking about how that time with Dave and the way we shared that content was a very, very meaningful, very, very impactful moment, and how that learning kind of just all of a sudden hit me in the face. It was like an epiphany where I realized that, look, the way people are communicating and consuming information has dramatically changed. You mentioned we were doing some of the right things, right, on the surface. But there's a much deeper, more profound change that has happened. And as I mentioned to some of you, the reason why I gave you my cell phone is that if we realized if we're not hanging out, if we're not publishing content in the places where consumers are right now, we're missing everything. And if we thought it was hard, for those of us, who are here now thinking that the COVID period was hard, this time that we've been in has accelerated this even more. This was a big epiphany. This was a big unlock for us that, look, we have to be where the customers are, not where we think they are or where we want them to be. We have to be in the channels that are meaningful to them. And so if you're wrestling with this, if you're finding that, hey, my story is similar to what you and Mackenzie are sharing, Dave, one of the reasons, and there are others, but one of the reasons is you may not be filling the right communication pipes with the right kind of content.
Yep. And so just quickly to wrap up the first part of this webinar where we give you the story, and we'll get into the framework in a second. Here's just to finish the story. Here's what we ended up doing. So we took all the things that as we were analyzing and looking, found that were working, and we put it together in a model for us, a framework that helped us take advantage of how the world has shifted, all the stuff Dave talked about, and what we had learned throughout this journey, right? And so we took all the stuff that we were spending tons of time and energy doing manually, and we realized, look, if we want to scale this out, we have to kind of pivot here and put it into a tool that's going to help us do it. So we actually poured it into an internal secret project, which at the time we called Da Vinci. And what it allowed us to do is just do everything we wanted to do and what was working more efficiently. Now, the cool thing is that tool that scratched our own itch that helped us become efficient is now an incredible technology that we offer to many, many hundreds of thousands of companies out there. And it's responsible for driving results for many, many of them as well. So that's super exciting. And through the course of months and labor and time and all this, we continued to look at what was working, what wasn't working, and a pretty clear framework and strategy emerged out of that. And that's exactly what we're here to talk with you about today.
So I see Donald. Donald, thanks for your engagement. By the way, you're really leading the charge here. Let me take just a second to answer Donald's question, because I think it's really important. Donald's saying, did you define OptiChannel up front? So let me pull up this schematic here on the screen, Matt. Is that okay? Let me just quickly walk through this so that everybody's clear about what we're talking about here. There's 4 pieces to the OptiChannel model that we're talking about. And again, the story that I shared with you, the experience that I had with Dave, and everything that happened during that time period really crystallized this model. And everything we've learned with organizations since then is encapsulated in what you see here. Number 1, you need to decide for your organization how you best communicate. What modality is your organization or are you best suited in? Is it words, video, or audio? We'll break this apart. I'm just going to go very high level, but we'll break this apart. You need to figure out, how do you best put out content? Number 2, OptiChannel is about ensuring that content is valuable to the recipient. It doesn't care about our feelings, what we think is cool, what we like. What matters is that the value is in the eyes or is in the hands of the receiver. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Thirdly, this is where it really kind of comes into the Opti part of this definition here. You need to be broadcasting, Donald and everybody else, multiple times per day in the small number of channels. Really, it's not a lot. I have a number of them listed here, right? But you need to be broadcasting in the small number of channels where your audience, your target market, is hanging out, where their attention is high, and where the cost to put content into that pipe, if you will, is low. Again, if this stuff sounds weird, I'm going to break all of this apart for you, okay? So you need to be in the optimal channel, ideally where the organic reach that channel has is high.
Yeah, I just want to make one point right here. If you've ever said to yourself the following statement, I'm not going to post my stuff on Facebook because I never use Facebook, or I would never go on TikTok, so why would I post my stuff on TikTok, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're making it about you. You're assuming that because of your behaviors and choices of the platforms that you like to be on, you're basically contextualizing that to your audience, right? And what OptiChannel assumes is it doesn't matter what we like or where we hang out. It's our job to figure out where our audience or where our customers' audience is hanging out and find that optimal channel for the audience and put this content in front of them there. not because we like it or don't like it, but that's because their preference is there.
Yeah, I see Matt saying, I've been saying that to my customers recently. I think what you just mentioned, Mackenzie, and then Paul saying, how do you identify the places where the tribe is present? We're going to get into that here in a second. Let me just quickly cover the fourth piece, and that is you can do all of these things, right? You can do all of these things, but if you don't know and you haven't mechanized a way to siphon engagement, strange word, right? But siphon meaning to pull out or to suck out engagement from these conversations that begin to happen and turn those into conversations that fill your pipeline, which is what we're talking about today. And what are you doing all this other stuff for, right? You need to be doing that in a way that's actually meaningful to your business. So that's the fourth component. I saw a question that came in that says, is OptiChannel the name of a philosophy, a software? Is it the name of the company? OptiChannel is a philosophy, but it's also a strategy for reaching and engaging your customers. And it's what our company does. We do have software that helps, but this is the strategy. This is the way it works. Now, Mac, for people like me, I'm always like, dude, show me the numbers, show me the money, baby, right? So can you share with us kind of what happened here from a leads and a revenue perspective?
Yeah, I can. So let's talk about those results. So when you do this, what happens? So just so you know, these are the kind of results that we got following this framework. So this is specific to us. So before we put this in place, we were doing an average or creating an average of 79 leads per month, which I said before, right, included that big list we got from trade shows, right? So 79 leads per month. Last year, we did 496 leads per month, right? The right leads. And this year, even with the pandemic, we were at 325 in 2020, so this past year. And so I just want to just show this, right? So we went from 2015, we started at 79. In 2019, we got to 496. And in 2020, we got to 325. So you can just see that huge delta between, where we were and where we were able to get. And Dave's favorite question, like, okay, great, leads are good, but let's talk about revenue, right? Leads are a necessity to the process of sales, but at the end of the day, we want to talk about revenue and how this impacts us. And so these are our sales year over year for last year. Again, this is while the pandemic is going on. So we were up 118% in actual revenue. This is new client revenue. And we increased our overall logos or more clients by 43%. And again, in a pandemic.
Yep. So if you have any questions about that, let us know, folks. We have a couple of resources that I mentioned. You might think, hey, it's cool for Mindfire, but what other kinds of companies, what other kind of people does this work for? And so we have a couple of resources that we'll share. Here's Brian. Actually, we had Brian on the show not too long ago, who was able to use this siphoning technique that I'm talking about to extract what does he say here? Around 60,000 leads for his target market. Actually, we have a case study on this. If you'd like to read this, I'm going to surprise my team here, but drop the word Brian into the chat. If you're in Zoom, if you're at LinkedIn, Zoom, Facebook, wherever you are, just drop the word Brian, and we'll make sure we get this this case study to you if you want to know that information. Well, we'd love to get that over to you. So when you do this right, and Mackenzie, you know this. I found this in my phone. I pulled a little snapshot out here. When you do this right, and I know I haven't shown you all of what this is yet. We're getting to all of that piece by piece. Here's what starts to happen. People will start to come to you through email, over the phone, through text messages like you see here on the screen. And using what you're learning today, you're going to see that it's a conversation. It's not a pitch fest. You don't have to go in there and pitch. They're asking you to learn more about your product and service. And by the time they reach out to you, they already know who you are. They have some affinity for you. They like you and they trust you. Now, if you're the sales exec in your organization listening to me and Mackenzie talk right now, you handle that lead by yourself, right? You take the next step. If you're the business leader, the entrepreneur, or the sales manager, you can field these inquiries and distribute them out to your team. There's actually a process that we teach our folks how to do that as well. So the point is that as you start to get out there and become visible and gain attention, this stuff is going to come into you as opposed to you having to go out after it. And what we found, Mackenzie, thank you for sharing that data. In contrast to kind of those feelings that I asked all of you if you've experienced before around, feeling inside like, hey, things are dry. leads are not coming in, that horrible feeling. In contrast, now, the way it feels to be able to run an organization where you know what needs to happen in order to make sales go up or down is incredible. That's why I have this picture of me here. It's not to say I've got a fancy boat or anything. It's just to say when I'm with my kids now, on the outside, I'm smiling. And on the inside, I feel the same. And that's what drives us. That's what drives me. That's our passion to get out in front of people. This is a picture from before the pandemic, obviously. Love the opportunity to be able to share this with folks from around the world to help them take the same journey. So that's kind of, Mackenzie, I think in a nutshell, how we stumbled on this and how we discovered or had this epiphany around how this OptiChannel model really changes everything. And so what I would love to do now is let's dive into those 3 secrets, if you will, that we've identified. Number one, how exactly, this framework worked to help us drive that revenue growth that you just mentioned. Number 2, how other people can employ this. And we're confident you can do this, folks, once you know how to do it. And then thirdly, I sent an email to some of you this morning about this. I actually had a typo in some of the promotion. What we realized as I recalculated those numbers, and what I want to show you is how you can get $176,000 worth of free eyeballs by employing this strategy. All right. So those are the 3 things we want to drop into. If you're ready for number 1, give me a yes in the chat. We're going to break this apart now in a little bit more detail. Give me a 1 in the chat. I'm going to pull this that I had for Donald here on the screen a second ago. I'm going to pull this back up here. And I want to show you, we want to show you exactly how this helped us get to the 118% increase in revenue. So take out your pen and paper if that's how you like to, jot things down. And let's start here with the modality aspect, meaning how you communicate and what we learned about that. So I think, Mackenzie, I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit about how we started to do that.
Yeah. So once we realized that this content marketing strategy in this way that in this framework worked, we started to obviously do a lot more of it, right? We wanted to increase our results. One of the things we did, as you can see here, is we started a podcast. Maybe you have heard of it.
Yep.
But if you've ever done a podcast, it's much more time consuming and challenging than you actually think it's going to be, right? And yet we even started doing videos. So we're recording videos, but again, lots of time and energy and resources into making these things. And lastly, as you see on the screen here, one of the things, like we told you, going back to the story, was that this content marketing is one of those glimmers of light, right, in this process that we started seeing was working. And so we started to just magnify that. We started to write tons of new case studies, ebooks, guides, multi-page, super informative pieces. But these sort of things took a lot of time. I think this one cost us about $10,000 or $25,000 just to produce. And so yes, it was working well, but it was taking a lot of time. So just out of everyone out there on LinkedIn and Facebook, on Zoom here, I want to know, have you tried to create content yourself? In the chat, I want you to go put a yes if you've personally tried to create blog posts or ebooks or guides. And if so, you probably know that it takes much more time than you originally. Whoops, I just accidentally went on mute there. And so while many of these things worked really well, we started to also notice that not everything hits, right? You can produce 5 great things and then one of them you spent $25,000 doing, just crickets, right? Mm-hmm. And so we figured, okay, wait a minute, we got to figure out what's going on here, right? How can we identify the ones that were actually working? And so it was at this moment that we discovered how to understand the signals of what's already working, meaning we had a way, and we're going to teach you in a second, to look at what's out there and identify, these are the pieces of content, these are the topics that people are engaging with, that's resonating with them, to get around the nasty problem of spending a lot of time and energy creating something, but then not actually getting anything. So Dave's gonna walk us through exactly what it means here to
Perfect.
Talk about something that actually works already.
And I see Brad Hilaria says, I write really good crickets. So Brad obviously knows what we're describing here. So I pulled this, Mackenzie, and I've shared this with some of our folks before, but let me walk through the steps here to answer what you just teed up there. I remember laying in bed on my cell phone, as we often do at night, kind of decompressing, scrolling through Facebook. And instead of, if you look up here in the upper left, Mackenzie, can you see this? Normally, I would type like a friend's name or type your name, Mackenzie, to see what kind of spy on what you were doing, right? Creeping on you. But instead of doing that, what I did is I wrote direct mail, as you can see here in the upper left. And what I found after I hit enter was that it came back with posts that people had written about direct mail. And suddenly what I realized is if I look at these engagement signals, like this one has 947 reactions. This one has 704. This one has 68. Look, this one had 268 people talking about it, right? I suddenly realized that this is kind of a clue, Brad, for you and for me, right? About stuff that isn't cricket generating, right? In other words, it's actually creating conversation and gaining attention. And so I thought, does this same thing work on LinkedIn? Ran over to LinkedIn, typed the word direct mail in, and found that yes, I could reverse engineer. We could reverse engineer by looking at those signals through a different lens, a different perspective to understand what was working. So I remember the next day, ran into the office. This is when we all still worked in offices. Remember those old days? And I remember telling the team, hey, look, can we use this information to either figure out what's working and write content that's similar, or we make this even easier and just use their content? And I remember the reaction was clearly one of like, what are you talking about, right? Sounds a little weird. Let me show you, folks. If you're taking notes, here's what we found. Write this down. It's a service called Sniply, S-N-I-P-L-Y. You can write that down. And basically, in a nutshell, here's what it does. It allows you to take any piece of content that's resonating, that's working. Let's say one of those direct mail pieces of content that I showed you, and superimpose what we call a call to action, like this thing that you see down here. Can you see that? Give me a yes in the chat. Yeah, you can see it? Okay, perfect. And what happens is it then gives you a unique URL like this one right here that you see. And when you share that unique URL to that piece of content that someone else wrote, your call to action is now superimposed there on the bottom.
Yep. So just to kind of bring it back to a specific example, right? So let's just say you offer promotional materials for trade shows and events, right? You went on the web, you found an article about how if you have great swag at a trade show, it increases your leads by 70%. I don't know, I'm just making that up. But imagine you went on the web, you found this awesome article. What we're saying is that you could use that article that someone else wrote. You can add a call to action at the bottom, meaning it takes that content, it iframe embeds it in another page, right, where the red arrow is pointing a different landing page. And then you can add a call to action at the bottom that siphons that engagement back to you.
Yep.
Someone else's content, right? And then as our framework and our model says, you got to take that content and start sharing it on many different channels multiple times a day. And so what we notice is that when we started to do this, that we could pull or siphon a subset of the people that actually engage in it. So you send this out, right? You post it on all these different places. Someone who's interested in that content sees it, and then they engage with it with that call to action. And now you have an inbound lead and inquiry back to you through that content that someone else wrote that you already know was resonating with your audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and let me give you one other tip here, folks. As you answer Mackenzie's question there in the chat, give us a yes if that's making sense. What I was looking for during that time is, okay, let's say that there was a way that I could search across Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube, like in one place, to find all of the content that's trending or resonating right now with my market. Wouldn't it be great if there was such a tool? There actually is. It's called BuzzSumo. It's what you see here on the screen. So what I discovered is that you could go over to BuzzSumo, you could type in direct mail, and it would go and would pull all of these articles and give you, can you see this here over here? These social indicators, you can see that? These social indicators here as to how well this piece of content was working across these different channels, all from one place. So now all of a sudden it gave us another way to accelerate this process around finding content that was working. Now I remember when I used to talk about this in front of people, or even now when we're talking to some of our students about this, some of our clients, often what we'll hear is, well, I don't want to use other people's content. Why do I need to do that? There's two reasons. The first is, why do you want to reinvent the wheel? I have this saying that I often tell people is you can tell who the pioneers are because they have arrows in their back and they're lying, boom, face down in the dirt, right? What does that mean here? What in the context of what I'm describing here is, why do you want to go out like Brett or like I did in the past and publish something that's going to be crickets for your company, for your organization? There's no need to. Use this kind of technology to gain the insight into what is valuable to your market, and either use that content in the way we're describing or use it to inform your decision-making process.
Yeah, and typically, just to, add on to that, many of the people who say they don't want to use other people's content are also the ones who, like us, were at a point where they wanted to produce something, but because it took too much time, energy, resources, dollar, all those things, weren't actually doing anything, right? So they're negative about this strategy that actually gets content out there, yet they're not able to do anything in the process, right? So that's sort of why we're like, hey, this is an amazing strategy. We can use this stuff. And it's really how it helps to accelerate the results there in 1 and 2.
So here's what I just described to you. I'll break it down. Step 1, find content that's already working. Step 2, Mackenzie, I know you said maybe hijack is not the best word here, but it's the one I chose. Leverage. Yeah, hijack it by adding your call to action. And third, share the content. And what happens is it starts to generate leads for you. Now, it doesn't just happen to us. There's many organizations, many other people who are doing this. Here's an example from Joanne Gore. Some of you know her, using this kind of process. Sent out 4 proposals last week, booked 3 great meetings. I'm way more comfortable in front of camera. Remember, we're talking about getting comfortable in these different modalities, right? So she's mentioning, hey, not only am I using content, but I'm also now starting to be comfortable in front of the camera. This works. This works. Mackenzie, I see we have a lot of questions coming in. How about, do you mind just jotting those down?
Yep.
And let's continue and try to take all those questions maybe a little bit towards the end. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So folks, that's the first piece I wanted to share with you. We wanted to be able to kind of break apart for you. Now, let us walk through why we think anybody can do this, why you can do it once you understand how to use this process. So let's get into why we're convinced that anybody can do this once you understand this unlock. And I put that in there for you, Mackenzie, because I know you like unlocks, right? Let's describe how you can do this and why we think you can do that. So as we work this process, Mac, you already mentioned this. We found that most existing technology, including our own, was just not sufficient to run this framework, and that we needed to create something that would make it easier. And we created this internal technology that we codenamed DaVinci. And what we found is that as we ran this OptiChannel process, there were workflows, certain combinations of things that worked better than others. And we started to realize that there were these patterns. And so creating the kind of workflow like the one you see here on the screen, which I'll describe to you here in a moment how it works, but just creating these kinds of workflows are time consuming. And so we thought, what if there is a way to make it a lot easier to run these kinds of OptiChannel campaigns? Here's an example of a workflow. We can send this out to you. If you want the workflow, just drop the word workflow in LinkedIn, Zoom, Facebook, wherever you are. We'll send out the schematic to you, but here's basically how it works. I'm going to go really quick here. Imagine here in the center, you have that piece of content that you know is highly engaging to your audience. Your goal as an OptiChannel marketer now is to drive traffic through a variety of channels. That could be email, social, where your customers are hanging out. You need to drive traffic to that piece of content. This little illustration that I have here illustrates that call to action overlay that you were talking about, Mackenzie, and that we just went through. That call to action overlay will siphon a certain number of readers, certain number of viewers of that content, and bring them to a landing page. That's what this designates over here. Something like an ebook, let's say, that's thematically related to that piece of content. So you're taking people who are reading that content and converting them in to a lead. That's what we found worked really well. So there's 4 steps to this process. here's what I want to show you so you know how to do it. And I want to actually demonstrate to you how we've made this easier. Step 1 is defining that target market that you want to go after. Step 2, hijacking some content. Step 3, driving traffic, pushing eyeballs to that content. And fourthly, setting up the siphon to begin to engage. So is everybody ready to see that? Give me a yes in the chat if you're ready to see. You ready, Mackenzie? All right, I'm going to turn off my camera here and pull this up so that you can watch this. Here we go. Let me get inside of DaVinci here. All right, so you should be able to see it on the screen right now. Let me know if you can see my mouse moving around. Can everyone see that? Let me know there in the chat. And so what I want to do now is I want to walk you through those 4 steps in the strategy, okay? Here's step 1, where we define the target market. So we come over here to My Markets, and what I'm going to do just for this example here is I'm going to create a new target market. And let's see, I'm going to call it direct mail target market, since I know we have a lot of direct mail folks here. And I'm going to tell the system to find content that is related to direct mail. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm telling the system, go find me some content that's related to direct mail so that I can then in step 2 hijack that content to be able to create engagement and siphon leads back to me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh, and then let's go inside of this target market right here. And as you can see, it's come back with a lot of content all related to direct mail. Can you see that here? These are articles that the system has found that have engagement. And what I often will do is I'll sort over here by the different engagement tallies. So I can see, for example, this one is doing fairly well on Facebook. And I've sorted by Facebook here. I can also sort by total engagements. Can you see this here? So this will give you a sense for how well content is doing across the web, across social, okay? So without having to create your own content, you have an idea of A, what kind of content is working, you know, headlines, imagery, thematic content, etc. And B, now you can also use that content. Let me show you. Let's just find one simple example. Let's see here. Let's use this one right here, okay? So when I click on that, it's going to open up from our friends over at Brand United. This is your brain on direct mail. And let's say you read through this, and for your particular needs, this is a good article, okay? Let's say you have a commercial print house, you do print and mail, and you want to talk to your tribe about direct mail and siphon some of that engagement. So let's pretend that's your scenario. I'm going to come back here, right here, and I'm going to say add a call to action to that, okay? So what we're telling the system to do is I want to add that call to action overlay on top of this content, okay, so that we can start to siphon some of that engagement over to us. And we're going to pick this one right here. Actually, let me show you what that looks like first so you have an idea. Here's the preview, okay? So this is that same piece of content. We now have a unique URL for that piece of content with our call to action overlay down here. Do you see that? So in this example, I've added an overlay that I already had created that's a report about the future of direct mail, and the reader can then download a study by clicking this button, okay? So it's pretty congruent with this content up here. So what I'm going to do is say, okay, let's go ahead and launch that. And that looks fine. And what the system is going to do now, part of the magic behind the system here is in step 3 of this process, it's going to actually create an OptiChannel campaign to be able to help us drive traffic to that, okay? So that's what I'm going to show you now. I've just shown you, first of all, how to define your target market. We made the direct mail target market. I showed you step 2, which is how to hijack some content for that. And now step 3, I'm going to show you how the system actually creates a campaign, like all of the elements that you need, all the OptiChannel elements that you need to drive traffic to that piece of content, okay? And the reason why you're doing that is so you can siphon engagement from that content and turn it into leads, okay? So let's come back here, and you can see the system has created 2 campaigns for us. One is a drive traffic. This is the kind of OptiChannel campaign that's going to push people to that piece of content. And this is a capture lead campaign. This is the one that's going to siphon the engagement, okay? So first, let me show you the drive traffic. We load that up. And remember, the system has done all of this on its own already behind the scenes for us, okay? This blueprint, that's what we call this, a blueprint. It's an OptiChannel blueprint that allows you to do this more quickly and easily. This blueprint is designed to drive traffic to a piece of content. And for this purpose here, we're using the one that we just found a second ago, okay? But it could be anything. But in this case, I'm showing you how to use this one. Now, what's cool about this is, check this out. These are the different OptiChannel touches that you can use to drive traffic to it. This is an email. And look at this. It's already written most of the email for us. So, of course, you need to come in here and say, thanks for reading this. Oops, can't type today. Love, who do we have here on the line? Just pick on you, Brian. Love Brian. Okay, so you can go in and customize the email. You can hover over any of these areas. They're all editable. You can change the image. But what's really helpful here, what saves a lot of time, is that the system has gone in and pulled out things like the subject line, the pre-header, the image, the text here, so that you have like 80% of it already done. And of course, you can also do the same thing in Facebook. You can do the same thing in LinkedIn. We don't have time to go into all of that today. But the system is going to help you drive traffic. That's the name of this blueprint here. Drive traffic to that piece of content. Now, as attentive salespeople, we need to know when certain things are happening to that content. So the system makes it very easy to say, hey, notify me when somebody's opening up an email, okay? Notify me when somebody's visiting this piece of content. When somebody's actually reading it, let me know, okay? And that's what these alerts do here for you. Very helpful, folks, for siphoning the engagement from that piece of content to turn it into something actionable, okay? Now, the last thing I need to do is just schedule when I want this sequence to start and who I want it to target, okay? So if I have a list, a CSV file, or maybe somebody from my database, a list of people from my database, I can say, all right, send it to that group. We could call this our clients, and you pick it from here. This is a list of all the people you've uploaded, set the date and time, and you're good to go. Does that make sense? Now, when people go to this URL, when you're driving traffic to it, let me show you something real quick here. Let me pull it up. Here it is, right? People are going to read this content. They're going to like it. And when they get to the bottom, they're going to see your call to action overlay, and they're going to say, that's interesting. I want to find out more about that. So they click on that button. And what it does is now it takes them to a landing page that you're using to siphon engagement from that piece of content. Does that make sense? Give me an X in the chat if you understand that. We've come from this content here. You have your overlay. You now have something that's thematically related to that content, driving them to a landing page where, in this example, they can download an ebook. I'm just going to do that real quick here for you, just so you see what happens here. And now it says, thank you for sending in your contact information. Check your email to get the ebook. Now, the system, I'm going to show you, has done all of this for me behind the scenes. Let me show you where that is. Sure, let's leave. Here's that campaign right here. It's called a capture lead. This is the one that in step 4 is going to siphon the engagement. Okay, so step 1, we defined the target market. Step 2, I showed you how to hijack some content. Step 3, I showed you how you're driving traffic to that content. And now step 4, you're going to siphon engagement by using a landing page here that's set up to capture information from the interested viewer. Okay, so here's the landing page we just saw. I can come in here. Let's just remove that. Let's say we want to say, welcome to your ebook. I don't know. That's a silly example, right? But I'm just giving you an idea of how you edit the content here. And similar to what we did in the email, we can add more text here. Just hover over those areas and start typing. We can change out the form over here. There's a variety of forms that we can pick from, all with the intent of making it very simple to siphon engagement from the reader. Okay, now that's the welcome page. Here's the thank you page. Remember, we saw this a second ago, so we can change all of this stuff here. Let's add another exclamation mark. We're super happy today. And that's basically it there. Okay, so I'm breezing through the setup of the landing page. That's a very, very important part of the process, because what you're doing is you're now taking readers, turning them into people you can communicate with. And the way you can communicate with them is numerous. You can pick up the phone and call them, or the system has a built-in email sequence that they can start to get. In other words, they can be dripped on by an email sequence here. So as soon as they submit the form in that landing page, you've now siphoned that engagement, and now you're going to nurture them with an OptiChannel drip sequence here. Does that make sense? And just like I showed you a second ago, All of this is editable. Now I'm going to pick a different name here. I'm going to put, who should I put? Lisa. Thank you, Lisa, for letting me use your name there. And you get the idea, right? You can add any number of emails, change the subject line, change the image. All of it is 80% done for you. You just got to go in and configure the rest. Now, I didn't show you this, but you can change. I think I see somebody. Yeah, I think I see someone asking this already. You can change the layout. There's different templates, a variety of different layouts that you can use. You can even make it look, handwritten, very simple. You can change who it's coming from. There's a lot of settings that allow you to customize it. Or if you like getting into the HTML and you have a layout that you want to use that's custom, you can also do that here through the asset library. You load that asset, and then you can use it there in any of your emails. Now, since the whole point of this is to be able to engage with people as they interact with the campaign, similar to what I showed you a minute ago in the drive traffic campaign, here you can get notified when people visit that landing page. Let's say we want to send it to our sales team. Of course, when a lead is created, when somebody submits that form, we need to know that. And this is where you can turn all of that on, okay? So what I just showed you here in just a few minutes, and I'm flying by all of this at a very high level, I showed you the strategy around, number one, how you create a market that is going to collect content for you. This is basically a bucket of thematically related content that already works. And there's a lot of other options here. I don't have time to go into all of it, but that's the first thing we've done here. Second, I showed you how to hijack that content so you can start to then drive traffic to it with the campaigns that the system pretty much sets up for you in advance. And then fourthly, how you can start to siphon that engagement. In other words, take those passive anonymous viewers and turn them into people you can engage with by using this capture lead campaign here to turn those people into someone you can work with. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, everyone? Give me a yes in the chat. Was that helpful? Was that helpful?
It was helpful to me.
Good. Give me a yes. LinkedIn, I see Rich is asking a question. So Mike, make sure to answer Rich's question. Facebook, Zoom, give me a yes if that was helpful. Now I want to share something with you here. I was thinking about, how this demonstration comes across. And I know that I make things look easy, right? And I know that we're describing to you that once you do this, your results begin to pick up. I know that also, however, that even with these tools and this technology and the training, that there's still people who are hesitant to put content out there. Sometimes it's because maybe they've tried in the past, once or twice, few times, and they stop because they think, for example, well, nobody's listening to me, right? Nobody's seeing what I'm posting, or I did something, but nobody engaged with it, or the algorithm is frustrating me, right? But you can't give up. The key is you have to be providing value, and you need to continue publishing even when you think no one is listening. Mackenzie, give me a 30-second. What is it we're showing here on the screen, and why is that important to everybody?
Yeah, so this is really important. You can all read this on the screen right here, but this is basically a prospect, someone who had been watching our content and watching us from afar and felt like Dave and our team was giving him very valuable information. And he basically allowed us to help him on a project and work with him. And we were able to gain a 6-figure deal from him because he had watched us over the years provide valuable content. So he felt like what we were doing was valuable. He had a need for a service. He came inbound to us because he'd watched us, and this turned into a 6-figure deal for us.
So don't know if 6 figures is big, small, the kind of deal that you would like. It's significant for some people, absolutely significant. And so if you're trying this and you're saying it's not working, the key is don't give up, folks. It's like if you went to the gym, Mackenzie, you give this example all the time, right? Go to the gym once, twice, 3 times, maybe 3 months, and you're not getting the results. Well, you don't stop. Stopping isn't going to get you the results. All right, I'm going to get off my high horse for a second. Mac, get those questions ready. I want to share one more piece here, and then we're going to answer all of the questions. I saw you chatting with people as we were doing the demo, so thank you for that. Get those ready. Folks, keep your questions coming in. We definitely want to hear everything that's on your mind. I'm going to give you one more piece here, and this is new stuff here for almost everybody in the community. I want to show you how, and I saw somebody ask this question, in fact, like, hey, did I miss the part around how do I get emails? How do I get names into my OptiChannel framework to begin to actually engage people, right? So if you are in that situation where you're like, hey, I need to be able to bring in fresh new names into my marketing, and I don't know how to do that, or I'm not sure the best way to do that, let me show you a way where you can force a social network, one that a lot of people overlook, to do that for you. All right. And so here's how you're going to do it. It's called, I'm actually looking at this portion of the schematic down here where it says arbitrage. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Basically, in a nutshell, you need to find, or you can find, or smart marketers are finding that there are channels where there's a lot of attention. Remember, I mentioned this to you before, and the cost to engage there is very low. That's why I call it arbitrage. There's an arbitrage opportunity, right? LinkedIn, you've heard me say this before, LinkedIn is one of those places. What we found is that when we wanted to fill this funnel, if you will, in addition to the existing names that we had in our database, if we wanted to find new names, like you see up here in the upper, on the left, but to the right, that LinkedIn was actually one of those places. In other words, instead of us just looking at it as I don't know, like a glorified resume holder or CV collection online, which is kind of how I used to look at it, and maybe some of you still look at it that way, it's actually much more like Facebook was in, I don't know, 2012, 2013. It's giving away tremendous free exposure to companies like yours, to people like you. And once we learned this, we went all in on LinkedIn. Now, I don't have time to go into the framework. There's 4 things that you need to do in order to make LinkedIn work for you. I'm showing you them here on the screen. You have to recraft your profile. You have to start publishing content. You're going to hear us say that all the time. You need to connect with decision makers in your market, and you need to engage. You need to be social in social media. All right. We have trainings on all of this. Don't have time to go into all of it, but if you're looking at LinkedIn and it's not working for you, it's likely, LinkedIn doesn't come with a user manual, especially if you want to use it for social selling. It's likely that you're not using the framework, what I have here on the screen, to be able to do that. Now, I like data. I like numbers. If there's anybody else like me, look at the screen here. Mackenzie, you were talking about the results for 2020. I pulled this yesterday for all of you. This is one person's profile. This is my LinkedIn profile. I want to draw your attention to this right here. 2,643,823 views last year in 2020. This is when we decided to go all in on LinkedIn. Now, the key is, pay attention here. You see this second row here? Give me an X if you see that second row. This $66.72 is what it costs if you want to pay LinkedIn to give you 1,000 impressions. This is what we actually paid, $66.72 on average for 1,000 impressions if you use their paid advertising product. Now, here's the unlock. The value, the market value, the street value of what they give away for free when you know how to use LinkedIn, the value of this 2.6 million impressions is $176,395.87. Think about that. I'm one person. Think about what happens when you compound this. For those of you who run your companies, what if you had your sales team doing this? Everyone on your sales team. What would happen? It's big. It's huge. I'm going to surprise my team again here with something else. Drop 176,000 into the chat if you want me to send you a list of all of those posts that comprise that 2.6 million. If you're sitting there thinking, what do you write about to get 2.6 million impressions? I extracted that yesterday through the API. If you want that in LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you are in Zoom, drop 176,000 in the chat, and we'll see how many people ask for that. And then I'll pull that together for all of you. All right. Now, this framework, when you put these 4 pieces together, that's the kind of result that you can get.
Yep.
If you're wondering, why the heck does LinkedIn give you, are they just being nice guys and people when they give you 176,000? Why is that number so big? It has to do with this concept. I'm going to go through it very quickly. Remember, I talked to you about arbitrage, right? You need to find where there's a lot of attention at a relatively low cost. What I mean by that is if you think of platforms like Facebook, in contrast to, let's say, LinkedIn, they are content saturated, meaning there's more content there than there are viewers. So when you post a piece of content, it's less likely to be seen. It's basic supply and demand. On the other hand, a place like LinkedIn or McKinsey, your favorite, TikTok, is content deficient, meaning there's more viewers than there is content. That machine is hungry for content. It's like my 4 kids, right? Every second I turn around, they're asking for a snack. Constantly need to feed them. That's the same thing with LinkedIn. Now, the good thing is less than 1% of people on LinkedIn are producing content. That means you have a huge opportunity, big opportunity in front of you. Now, when you start doing this, when you start producing content and providing value in the ways that McKinsey and I are talking about, people are going to start thanking you for your marketing. How often does that happen? Send me more emails. I want more of your stuff. How often does that happen? For us, that happens often. How often does it happen to you? Now, some of you are probably thinking, shoot, that 2.6 million views, I know you had to create a lot of posts to do that. I'm just scared. I don't know how to publish posts like you guys do. I want you to remember this. Even dropping comments on LinkedIn right now will help attract people to you. I've shown Rachel's example before, but look at this. She says, I've been calling on a design firm. I haven't done any work with them yet. They recently did a post. So somebody else posted on LinkedIn and she commented on it and got an RFQ. Drop me a yes if you're following along. You don't even have to post necessarily. Start with dropping comments. Give me a yes if you're following along with that. Does that make sense? I see the yeses coming in. Good. You can, folks, learn how to do this. Here's an example from a client that we work with. This is a post, 234, if you can see this, 234 engagements, 49 comments, 10,000 views, right? If you want to learn how to do this, you got to put in the time. This is not out of reach. Prior to this, they were getting what probably many of you do, is not very many views, not too much engagement. Once you learn the right way to do it, once you learn how to do push-ups, once you learn how to do pull-ups, once you learn how to drive a car, once you learn how to run a company, once you learn how to sell, it's like anything else. Put in the time, get good at it, and the results will follow. What questions do people have, McKinsey, about this? I want to make sure that we answer all those questions. Can you start compiling those together for us?
Yep.
Are we getting a nice list?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I saw the expression there. So that means there's a lot of questions. Let me ask everybody a question though, before we go in there. We've been at it for now about 70 minutes. I appreciate everybody being here. We have about 20 more minutes officially on the clock with you, but I want to ask you all a question. Do you think that if you followed what we showed you in secret number 1, and you use this framework for your business or for yourself, and you found content that was already working and either used that content or used it to inform what you're publishing, what your company is publishing, and then you did what I showed you in number 2, which was, use this process to get the content out there in front of your market. And then let's say you learned how to force LinkedIn to give you, even if it's not $176,000 worth of free impressions, let's just say you got half of that, $80,000 worth of impressions. Do you think this could work for you? Drop a yes in the chat if you think this could work for you. I want to see you building confidence here. That's what this whole framework is about. It can work for you, but you got to know what you're doing. I see we have a ton of questions, Mac. I see you getting those ready. Hang tight, folks. We'll get to all of those. Keep those replies coming in if you think I can see all those yeses coming in. Remember, when you apply this philosophy in places like LinkedIn, let's say, listen really carefully here. You can go and post, and even if you have very few followers, very few connections, you can post something and that thing can pop. That thing can go nuts. Here's an example. You may have seen this. I posted this on Saturday of all days. This has since gone viral. 9,527 reactions, 763 comments. Look at the views, 455,996 views. Market value of that is $30,000. And you think, Dave, you have a big following. Of course you can do that. Doesn't take a big following. You could literally go out there with very few, because of the way LinkedIn is set up right now, where it's content deficient, and this could happen to you. Will it happen on day one? Probably not. But there is a chance. I can't guarantee it happens on day one for anybody. That's unrealistic for most people. But I can guarantee you something. You have zero chance of doing this if you don't start.
Exactly.
If you don't do anything, then I can guarantee you, you won't get any results.
Yeah.
So you got to start. So let me ask you all of this. We've been talking about a lot today. I know we've thrown many, many ideas at you. I want to give you some tangible next steps if you would like to learn more. Who would like to learn more to see how you apply this in your business? Drop a yes in the chat if that's you. Couple things. Mackenzie, you and I talked earlier today, and I know you were very gracious to block out time on your calendar for you and for your team. We have time set aside next week. If you want to go one-on-one with us on this, if you're there in your organization, I saw Betty as an example. I think Betty's an existing client, right, Mackenzie?
Yep.
Betty's saying, we're doing this all wrong, right? Can you help us figure out how to put this into place? Absolutely. If you're not a client, it doesn't matter. Even if you're not a family member, as we call it, we want to talk with you one-on-one. If you need the help, if you want to understand how would this work for me and my organization, you can be Fortune 500, you can be Fortune 100, you can be Fortune 5 million, as I call it. Any small business out there that's looking to engage with their customers and prospects in this new way using OptiChannel, we have set time aside to talk to you. There's a lot of different types of companies here, right? So what we're describing at a high level needs to be customized to your unique situation. And so we'd love to talk to you about that. Mackenzie, if you don't mind, drop that link in the chat. Same with you, Mike Chercuzio, Suzanne, everybody else. If you go to www.mindfiremarketing.com/yes, there are 4 people that we have allocated time for next week on our side. And we'll take the first number of people that sign up today. If you want to talk and go through this into more detail, we'd love to talk to you about how you can apply this in your own business. First come, first serve. But let me clarify something in terms of who this is for. This is for you if you're serious about changing where you are right now in your business. If you're the business owner, if you lead your organization, if you oversee sales or marketing, and you want to take control of your destiny, and you want to invest your time and your organization's focus on putting this kind of strategy into place. If you want free training, if you want more resources, we have plenty of materials that we can give you. We can send those to you. But this call is specifically for you if you have a situation where there's something that you think we can help you solve. On that call, we're going to dig into exactly what that thing is. What are your goals? What are you trying to do? And then we'll offer a few suggestions around how you can solve that. No two organizations are the same. No two challenges are necessarily the same. So we want to prescribe for you based on understanding what you're trying to do, what we think will be best to get you where you want to be in the shortest amount of time. Does that make sense? So I give you permission, turn down this crazy guy on the other end of the webinar here. Turn me down if you need to, if I'm distracting you. Mackenzie, did you drop that in there? www.mindfiremarketing.com/yes. Again, like I said, first come, first serve. We only have a certain number of spots there. We're limited on how many people we can talk to. So if you want time, listen, if you got value out of Mackenzie in this group setting, wait till you're one-on-one with Mackenzie. You're laughing, Mackenzie, but it's true. And some of you here know that. If you want to get these kinds of insights applied to your business one-on-one, take us up on this. You have two options right now. Everything you've learned, do nothing, right? What's going to change? Probably not very much.
No.
Or schedule that session. Let's talk. Say, you know what, Dave, Mackenzie, I don't know if this is going to work for me. I don't know if my organization can do it. I don't know if I'm the right person to do it. I have this doubt. I have this question, but I want to see. I want to learn. Tell me more. Mindfiremarketing.com/yes. Let's talk about that. I know that some of you reading this and hearing me and watching us today are saying, you know what, I can't do this because I don't have enough content to put out. Well, we've shown you one way to leapfrog or circumvent that problem, right? I saw somebody else say, hey, we don't have enough data. We don't have good data. We don't have new
Lists.
names to put into this system. Well, now with that insight that you have on LinkedIn, what's holding you back, really? If you feel you're not technical, or you're not a marketer, or you don't want to be salesy, or you're too small, or you're too big, folks, we all have a ton of excuses. Put that aside. Let's talk. Let's see if this can help you in the situation that you're in. Not every solution is for everyone. We may tell you that, you know what, you're not a good fit for this. We'll be honest. But we have multiple ways that we can help you if that's something that would be useful to you. So mindfiremarketing.com, as you see there on the screen, boom. Mac, you better be ready. Give me questions.
I'm ready. I just want to say one thing. You know, I talk to a lot of people that we get the opportunity to talk to, right? And one of the biggest things that I see is blocking people from doing this is them getting in their own way, right? You start, your brain says, oh, this is a new process. This is something new that I have to do. And then your brain starts saying, I can't do that because A, B, C, D, E, F, X, Y, and Z, right? And then you're going to be going into 2022 trying to figure out how we can solve the problem again, right? So if you are looking to take your own future into your hands and take an, as I call it, offensive approach, the only way you can do that is by starting, right? You have to start. Even in that crawl, walk, run model, crawling implies you're moving, right? You're not sitting, waiting, and hoping that something's going to change. So what Dave said is exactly true. You know, I want you to know that you have the ability to do this. This is a framework that works if you follow the process, right? Let's go over some of those questions now. So starting from the top. And this is a good question. I answered it in text, but you and I can both give our input. What's the biggest factor that prevents marketers from successfully implementing an OptiChannel marketing / sales strategy? That was Donald C's question.
What did you say, Mackenzie?
Yeah. So what I said is that every single company is different. There's a bunch of different pieces of the puzzle, right? So number one is you got to have the strategy or the marketing know-how to know where you want to go. Then there's, okay, I kind of know where we want to go, but how do I actually get there? The tactics, right? Oh, I'm going to send these emails, kind of like the framework we taught you. We're going to post this content. Then there's, you know what? I get the strategy, I get the tactics, but shoot, I don't have the technology to be able to help me mechanize those things because doing it manually is going to take a lot of time, right? Or I don't have the people, or I don't have all those things, right? So the answer to this question for me is that question depends on the specific person and which part of those pieces of the puzzle do they not have. So I think it's very specific. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that usually what happens is we lose to our biggest competitor. And you probably won't hear most companies say this. Listen up. You want to know who our biggest competitor is? You can go Google them right now. It's the status quo. It's doing the same old shiz that you did last week, last year, last decade, and expecting different results. I would say from looking at you and your team and what you do, Mackenzie, with our clients, that often it's folks who say, you know what, I'm just going to continue doing what I've been doing. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this new stuff. This seems scary to me. Not ready to make the investment, not ready to make the leap. I'm going to stick with what I've been doing. So I would say the thing that gets in most people's way is status quo.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So just again, a lot of people that came in late were asking specifically about OptiChannel. Can you just define OptiChannel for everyone here again and explain them how that matters to them?
Yeah, in a simple nutshell, OptiChannel is both a philosophy as well as a movement of people that we've been blessed to be able to lead. And it's also a category and a type of software which we offer. The OptiChannel philosophy is simple. It says this, basically, look, if you're in marketing, if you're in sales, and if you're not in the small number of channels or platforms that matter today to your audience, you're going to lose. Conversely, on the other hand, if you know where your audience is hanging out and you publish consistently in those places, contextualized to that location, the world is your oyster. Tremendous opportunity. So that's the OptiChannel philosophy. Be in the places where your customers are, produce valuable content, publish consistently, and learn how to siphon that engagement to bring business conversations and leads into your organization. That's how I put it. Mackenzie, how do you say it?
Yeah, I think that it's exactly what you just said. Couldn't have said it better. Someone asked, how do you spell shiz? That's SHIZZ. Good one. Got to throw in some of those good questions. Okay, so going back to the part where we talked about hijacking or leveraging other people's content, we had a few people coming in saying, "Is this legal? Can we acceptably do this?" Yeah.
Yeah. So the content, you're not rerouting their traffic. You're not, taking traffic and pushing it somewhere else. The traffic still goes to their content, whoever that third party is. And by the way, the third party can opt out. There's always ways that they can opt out of being used in that way. All you're doing is, like Mackenzie, I think you mentioned it, the geeky term is there's an iframe that includes your call to action back to your site. So yes, it's legal. The recipients are getting more traffic. They're not losing any of those eyeballs. It's all there for them. And it's something that, like I said, they can opt out of if they want to. Mackenzie,
Perfect.
did you see that question from Richard?
Not right now.
I just pasted it in the speaking notes there on 112.
Okay, I'm answering Paul right now.
Okay.
So a few people have said, hey, for some reason that link isn't loading. So here's the deal. If the link isn't loading, make sure the www is there, like I posted it. But if not, who cares? Let's not make this a challenging process. You can put your email and phone number in the chat and we will reach out personally to make sure that we take care of you. And I'll go, do you want to answer that question regarding Richard, or do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, tee that one up.
Okay, hold on, what slide did you say?
112.
Yeah, perfect. So what are the things I should be thinking about when I start this? What are some of the reasons this is a good one. Why I should tell my team that we need to do this now. That's a good one.
So what was the first part of that?
Yeah, so the first part is, what are the things I should be thinking about when I start this?
Okay. I can pull up some data here. We didn't have a chance to get to it, but I think that was from Richard. You said, I think,
yes.
A couple of things I can share that might be useful. One is I had this in the presentation, but I pulled it out. But I think, Richard, for you and for others who are thinking, should I take this leap? Should I start for my organization? This might be impactful. I got this from Matt. This was at some point last year. He wrote me this little handwritten note. He said, nothing should go back to normal. Normal wasn't working. If we go back to the way things were, we will have lost the lesson. May we rise up and do better.
I love that.
It's really impactful. And that's kind of an aspirational, like, kick in the pants, Richard, for you or for me, anybody who's thinking, why should we take action now? But if you're like me, Richard, I know there are others like me who like the data. I did pull some information that might be useful to you. This is from a survey that LinkedIn did. And their view is that social selling, virtual selling, like we're talking about here, is here to stay. 80% of the folks that they surveyed here say they've shifted somewhat or completely to virtual selling, social selling. And of those respondents that have shifted, they say that 57% are saying that this model is better than the traditional model that they had employed in the past. I think that number is only going to increase as people become more comfortable and confident. 46%, almost half, expect to continue that in the next 12 months. So this is a change that I think is here to stay. Thirdly, I think that there is a theme here, and I've talked about this a little bit today, where, look, if things were difficult before the pandemic, before COVID, it's only going to get tougher because the world has really, really changed. At the onset of COVID, I looked at this data. Companies increased their email outreach by 59% when, about a year ago, roughly, when things started to get crazy. Yet the people on the other end, the buyers, the receivers, decreased their consumption of that email 25 to 30%. So more emails going out, but people were consuming less of it. Again, this whole idea of OptiChannel, you got to be where they're at. You have to pay attention to that. So this moment, this time period that we've been through Richard is calling for a new form of marketing and selling, where we put the buyer's interest in the center and we provide them with value. It's different. Lastly, I had this. Yeah, Mackenzie, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's kind of like that saying that we know that, 20 years ago, the salesperson was the gatekeeper between the buyer and all the information about that process, right? So if you wanted to learn about, hey, what's the best way to do this? You had to actually contact your local sales rep, right? There was no such thing called the internet that was fruitful with all the content. That's no longer a thing anymore, men and women, right? So all of your prospects and customers have the ability to search and find the information that they want with this amazing thing called the internet, right? If you are not providing them value, they don't need to talk to you, right? And so that's why this is more important than ever. You need to be delivering value in the eyes of your prospects and customers. So like Dave showed, they're going to want to come to you for more information because they say, this person has something to share with me. I want to engage with them because every time I engage with them, I learn something new. I can get better results. Right? You're helping them evaluate, learn, grow, and expand their business and their revenue, and therefore they want to talk to you.
One more, Mackenzie. Drop me an X, folks, if you like this data. If this is helpful to you, drop me an X in LinkedIn, Facebook, Zoom. If this is helpful, look at this. Business leaders, sales leaders, think about this. The U.S. economic growth that is now projected, Goldman Sachs, I pulled this from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, could rival China's for the first time in decades. They have revised their estimates of GDP growth for 2021. Goldman Sachs is expecting a 6.9% GDP growth. Morgan Stanley is even more optimistic at 7.3%. Now, the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Package, I think, as they prognosticate, is a big factor behind the optimism. And what's really interesting, Morgan Stanley, I found this data in their research. They estimate that U.S. households, I'm talking about to my U.S. friends here, have built up a tremendous amount of pent-up demand that as things improve is going to unleash, traffic to restaurants, movies, hotels, planes, vacations. Consumers have been holding on to cash, waiting for this moment. Yep. And I was blown away by what they think the pent-up demand is. It's $2.3 trillion in excess savings. This is money that is going to be spent as the economy reopens.
Just talking about this.
Yeah. Why is this important? I think you get it, but the point is clear in my mind. Now is the time to invest in being in front of your market. You got to be ready for this. You need to be drawing attention to yourself.
Yeah, and if you are a service provider, this is the information that you need to help your customers know. Because again, let's just say you're a printer or an agency and you have a cruise line as your client who does print with you or who you do digital marketing for. The $2.3 trillion in excess savings, your customer has the opportunity to get a slice of that pie. For the world, for the people that have the savings to spend their money with them. But that's not going to happen just organically, naturally, right? The reason or the way that's going to happen is if you equip your customers with the ability to be in front of their prospects and customers, right? You need to help them get there so that the people who have this savings that are making choices on traveling in this example are going to choose that company. And
let's get back to the questions, Mac. I feel like I've gone off on a rabbit trail here answering Richard's question. I got really passionate about it. One last thing, Richard, and for everybody else who's listening, one last thing. Yep. This 2.3 trillion, as you're talking about it, if you're a service provider, Mackenzie, if you're servicing customers, if you're, for that matter, any organization that has any customer, if you're not drawing attention to your company, attention is the currency, if you will, that we all deal with, right? If you don't have that attention, you don't have jack. If you don't have that attention, you don't have jack. We don't have a shot at recovering revenue as things continue to open. Okay, I'm going to shut up, Mac.
All right, so now we have a bunch of tactical questions. So we'll just kind of try to go through these fast and furious. So Betty M says, is all of the content that you were showing when you opened up the tool and actually did the demo, is that branded to Mindfire, or can I brand that to my company?
No, you can brand everything to your organization. Did you say that was Betty?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody's wondering, what I showed you there was an example, I think, through the Mindfire lens, like if we were doing that for ourselves. But no, for all of you, yes, it would be branded to you and your company. Have your brand identifiers on it.
Wonderful. Next question is, do I have to have my own email list? I missed where someone would be pulling the email from. If I don't have an email, can I get it?
Yeah, good question. So I think I showed you a little bit about how there's a tremendous opportunity with LinkedIn and other social channels that are underutilized, content deficient. Big opportunity to pull that in, pull people in from there. Secondly, built into the software is the ability to enrich contact data. So let's say you have first name, last name, and maybe a little bit of information about somebody. The system actually is set up in such a way that you can say, you know what, go and find email addresses for these 2,000 people. I don't have emails for them as an example. Maybe I met them at a trade show, didn't keep their business card or whatever happened. You don't have emails for them. The system can go out there and find that for you to be able to provide you that data. Thirdly, we just released this functionality earlier this week. The connection with LinkedIn is even tighter, where it enables you to be able to research people and research companies, bring that into your Mindfire software, and then again, enrich that information and bring in decision makers with full contact information. Yeah, so a lot of opportunity there.
Okay, great question from Leon. This was earlier in the session. Leon, hope you're still here. Dave, could you please give an example of how you might present the same content on each of the options of posting, as I know we have to present them differently. So basically what he's saying is, on different platforms, how do you present the same piece of content? You want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So we touched on that in terms of, needing to contextualize content, right? Which is really important in the OptiChannel philosophy. We touched on it. Did you say that was Leon?
Yeah.
So Leon touches on a good point here, folks. If you take content and let's say you start to push it through the pipes, and let's say one pipe is email, another pipe is LinkedIn, another pipe is Facebook, and you push the content out in the same way for all of those, it likely won't work as well as if you contextualize it to each of those platforms. In other words, simple English, the way people consume content on LinkedIn is different than how they consume it on TikTok, is different how they consume it in email. So you do have to take that into consideration. I'll give you a simple example. I often will work with clients who will bring us something that works in print and direct mail. Very simple example. Leon, this might be appropriate for you. And they'll send us the PDF and say, hey, can you put this in an email, right? Can you make this the email? No. You don't take a direct mail piece and shove it into an email and push it out and expect it to work well. At least you don't usually expect it to work well. Simple example, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and just a quick tip. One way to do that if you're not sure where to start is just be really direct. So was talking to a prospect a few weeks ago that runs networking events all throughout the country. They have Detroit and a bunch of other different cities. And they said, well, how do I do that? I said, like this, take the same piece of content in the beginning of it and say, hey, Detroit, hey, Los Angeles, right? Or hey, Facebook, hey, LinkedIn, right? And just think about when you're on these different platforms, what frame of mind are you in? If you're on LinkedIn, you're probably in a different modality than if you're on Instagram scrolling pictures, right? So just take into consideration, what frame of mind are people are in, and then, contextualize, slightly change. Contextualize just means slightly change or modify that content to fit that. Okay, another question. So Jennifer said, and Jennifer, you had a lot of great questions. So thank you so much for interacting with us today. One of the questions Jennifer had was, you're only modifying the view of the content on the newly created unique URL. It doesn't affect what a viewer sees when they go to the original URL, right? So she's asking specifically, can you just walk everyone through the, taking of content, putting it in a landing page and adding the call to action?
Yeah, sure. As I do that, can you look at the question on 119? Get that one ready?
Yeah.
So you said that was Jennifer?
Yep.
Yeah. So Jennifer, you're absolutely right. So that process that we showed you, that we trained you on, does not modify let's call it the host content. Okay.
Right.
So the host content stays exactly as it is. I think somebody else asked a similar question here. We don't actually modify that content. We simply superimpose that red, in the example that I showed you, was a red bar at the bottom. You can customize that and change the colors and all of that and the wording. Right. It simply superimposes it on top of that piece of content. Perfect.
All right, next question. So we're getting, actually, and I've seen this a bunch of times. So Rachel, thank you so much for asking this. Here says, can you help me with content? Are you software? Are you hardware? How do I do what you're describing? Do you help us? This is basically, who is Mindfire in a nutshell.
So that was Rachel, you're saying?
Rachel, yeah.
Okay. Give me I'm going to jot that down. Give me 1 second to reply to George. I see George saying, hey, timeout. You just minimized emailing a PDF to someone. Isn't that what Da Vinci's doing? No, George. George, what I'm talking about is folks who send a direct mail piece. Imagine a direct mail piece, George, that you would be sending through USPS. People will actually think that you can take that direct mail piece and make it the body of the email and send that out as the email. That's what I mean. I'm sure you wouldn't do that, but that's what I was alluding to. So Rachel is saying, what do we do? How do we help people? Is that kind of the question? What does Mindfire do more?
Yeah. Do you help me with content? Are you software, hardware? How do I do what you're describing? Do you help us? What's Mindfire? Lots of questions in one.
Yeah. Yep. Give me a sec here. So let me pull up on the screen. Yep, there we go. So in short, I'll try to be as quick as I can. Mindfire is a technology company. So we have software and we have packages built to run that software to help companies recover revenue, which is the big theme these days, right? So you can see like the OptiChannel revenue recovery program is something that we offer, and that's software surrounded by a set of services to help organizations take steps forward. The software includes access to the blueprints that I showed you just briefly in today's demonstration, where you're able to create different kinds of OptiChannel campaigns to drive traffic, to capture that traffic and turn it into leads and conversations, dashboards, reports. I saw a question about CRM earlier too, I think, Mackenzie. I think talking about, can we push this back into CRM? Yes. Also, the system has some CRM capacity built into it, functionality built into it. So that's a little bit about our software. Did they ask about training? Should I talk about training real briefly here?
They asked like 15. Rachel asked like 15 different things. So yes.
So
let's answer all her questions.
We offer a 6-week course called OptiChannel Secrets Training. It's a 6-week course that takes folks through a series of lessons on basically how to take everything that we talked about today and go to the next level. You know, how do you find engaging content? How do you repurpose that for your organization? How do you push it out there? How do you set up your LinkedIn profile to be ready to turn people who are looking at you into leads and into conversations? I mentioned, some of the data around LinkedIn. It's really interesting. 81% of buyers are more likely to engage with you if you have a strong professional brand on LinkedIn. If you don't know what that means, or if you don't know what to do or how to do that, that's part of what we train folks on inside of that 6-week course. So there's a lot that we go into in that course to help you ultimately be able to employ what we're talking about here, to be able to do many of the things that you want to do relative to achieving these results. Here's a couple of the students from that class. You can see Chris here on the left says, I changed the way I look at LinkedIn. Just today, I got a couple of opportunities. That's awesome. Here's Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie started posting content in the way we're describing. And look, she had a post here. She's in the packaging and print industry, 1,317 engagements, 156 comments. So this stuff works once you know what you're doing, but this is an additional layer of training that we can provide. Mackenzie, did anybody ask about, and I think I saw somebody fill out the form asking about this. How do we do this if we're resource constrained? Has anyone asked any questions about?
Yeah.
So there's two things that I think are important for some of you. If you're wondering, can my organization do this? If I don't have the right people, or if I have maybe the right people, but they're too busy, can you run these kinds of campaigns for me? So we actually have an agency where we can do campaigns with you, or we can do campaigns for you. Okay, so if you find yourself thinking, hey, I need to be able to do this, but I don't have the resources, we have an agency that can help. Lastly, and I'm going to shut up and let's get back to the questions. Who are my print friends? Drop the word print if you're still here and you're in print. Facebook, LinkedIn, Zoom. I want to see who the print people are. We have what we call a content pack. These are quick start campaigns that come preloaded. Actually, Mac, you showed this one earlier, right? This 3 ways to connect direct mail with Facebook, right? So if you're thinking back to that example, and I think Mackenzie, you said we spent like $25,000 producing and distributing that. We actually make those campaigns end to end, meaning all of the emails, the landing pages, the ebooks, the thank you nurture sequence, all of the OptiChannel touches we package up into what we call a quick start, and we make it available to you to give you additional high value content that you can be pushing out to your customers and prospects. So we also have that we offer folks. We also have this one we did with USPS. It's about how millennials still find direct mail very, very engaging. Again, it's the end-to-end campaign. All of the emails, the landing page, the ebook, the thank you nurture sequence, all of the things that you need to be able to run campaigns. And it's all pre-written, right? All you have to do is go in and change like the last 20%, put in your logo, change the content, maybe put in your image here on the screen, so that you can be able to use that for yourself. Mackenzie, next question.
All righty. Let's go to the next question. We got lots of questions coming in. Lots of people asking if they're going to get the recording. Yes, you will all get the recording. After we're done with this, we are going to get it all together, put it there, and send it to you. Do you have something else here? Yeah.
Yeah, I have the service provider option on the screen, but we can come back to that. I don't want to monopolize the conversation. Let's get to the other questions people are asking.
George says, I've used the quick pack of content, huge plus to get going. Love that, George. Thank you so much.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I don't know.
Okay.
We're almost out of spots, I think, for next week as well, Mackenzie, on the calendar. So if there's anybody here who's still on the fence about taking time with anybody here on our team, please take the opportunity to do that now. www.mindfiremarketing.com/yes. Teams, if you can drop that into the chat for everybody, just make that easy. I see somebody going there right now, filling in the form. So get over there before all those spots are gone. Mac, next question.
Yep, perfect. So I think you just answered this, but someone said, we're definitely not doing this correctly, and we definitely need training. Do you offer training? So just to answer quickly, yes, we offer training. Think about this session that we just did, taught with you right now, times 6 weeks, very specific. And as Dave mentioned before, we have a plethora of free information. We do these webinars every single Friday. If you're simply looking for free stuff that you can consume and go apply, we have those. If you're looking to make an impact in your business and actually start employing some of these strategies and tactics, or looking for technology team and training to actually implement that, we can help you. Make sure you filled out that form so that we get in touch with you. Let's see, next question. Okay, I'm just going through them, implementing OptiChannel strategy, just making sure we got all of them. So this was from Larry Z, and it was back when you were doing the demo, I believe. But Larry asked, what was the last bullet after drive traffic? So I think the question was, after you do the drive traffic, what happens next?
Yeah, after you drive traffic, and you said that was Larry who asked that?
Yep, Larry. Z.
Larry, yeah. So Larry, after you, in the OptiChannel model, after you push attention to or drive traffic to a piece of content, the next step is to learn how to siphon engagement, siphon interest from that piece of content. If you're pushing it to a web page, there's a set of strategies and techniques for doing that. If that attention is being pushed to, say, a LinkedIn post, there are yet a different set of strategies and tactics for doing that. So it depends on, where that attention is going, but you have to, again, contextualize, keep using that word, contextualize your behavior based on the channel.
Awesome. Thank you. George P says, does your technology Da Vinci allow us to use opted-in lists from list brokers?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Question, can the call to action tag be modified or customized?
Yes.
Meaning the part at the bottom that says, whatever you want it to say, the answer is yes. You can make that say whatever you either interested in learning about this, or you completely set that up.
Yes. Yes, correct.
Would this be able to integrate with our CRM?
Yes. I'm trying to be more concise.
No, yeah. Is in your content, they use the word eye candy, but I asked what they mean, and they said images. Are images better than text?
No, not necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
It depends. You should test.
It depends. You got to test.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said.
Who asked that question?
That was Bella Flor.
Dean, I think, is his first name, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Dean, it depends on the channel and where you're at. If you remember that $176,000 value that we extracted from LinkedIn, many of those posts, much of that content were text-only posts. So let me say that one more time for everybody. If you think, hey, in order to be engaging on LinkedIn, I got to have a video production team, or I got to be comfortable on camera, talking like this maybe, or I have to have a graphic artist who can create wonderful images and pictures for me. No, you don't. Text posts can do just fine. In fact, sometimes even better. So hopefully that gave some perspective there.
Okay. When someone clicks the CTA, where do they go?
Where did they go? Where do
you go when you click the link?
Yeah, so you can go
Jennifer
anywhere you want it to go. But what I showed you today was when you click that CTA, you want to take them to a landing page, something that provides them a way to follow up on whatever it is that you dangled in front of them. Usually with a short form that they can fill in, first name, last name, email, something like that, to be able to get that thing. So in short, take them to a landing page.
Okay, someone wants more specifically, I want an example of contextualization on each platform. So if we just want to, let's just talk about this webinar, right? When we were marketing this webinar, writing emails, posting on LinkedIn and all the places, how did you slightly change it? Just give us the tactics there.
Yeah, well, one example, I think easy way to do it is with TikTok. Who's asking that question now?
Leon,
are you on TikTok? Who else is on TikTok? Drop me a yes if you're on TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, drop me a no. Come on, wake up. I still see everybody here. Come on, everybody. I want to see everybody answer. I see no, Jennifer. Brett says yes. Where's Leon? No. Leon, hello. Are you on TikTok? Leon is on TikTok. Yes. Okay, good. So Leon, if you were to publish a video on LinkedIn that was talking to your business buyer in using words and lingo that are expected on LinkedIn, let's say, that kind of communication could work well on LinkedIn. If you take that same video and you throw it into the TikTok feed, or you publish that, as you know, being on TikTok, it's out of place, right? If you go and you look on TikTok, there's different viral themes that people are playing off of, right? I don't know if you've seen, Mackenzie, have you seen this one? I think I saw Gronkowski and Tom Brady, where Gronkowski, and a lot of people are doing this, like you call somebody, right? And you film, the FaceTime interaction on your camera, and you call them and you say, hey, why'd you call me? I got to call you back. I'm really busy, right? And the person on the other end, their expression is like, wait, WTF? You called me. Why are you saying you're busy? You can't talk to me right now. It sounds strange when I describe it, but if you're on TikTok, you know what I'm talking about, right? So Leon, to your point, if you were to take something that does well on LinkedIn and insert it into a feed of content where you've got Gronkowski and Tom Brady and other people engaging in this way, your content is likely not going to
they're not going to get
land. Yeah.
It's not going to hit.
How could you take that same content that you did on LinkedIn and repurpose it in a way, or recraft it in a way where it is seamless to that engagement?
Yeah, I also heard recently on a podcast a really good point where a lot of people, B2B and B2C companies, are saying, well, the stuff that I sell I'm not selling to kids, right? And then the person said, okay, well, who do you think makes decisions on those household items? The parents, but who's influencing them? Dave,
oh my gosh, that person doesn't have kids. I take it.
Yeah. If Emmy comes to you and she wants whatever that is, she's influencing you and Sarah. Terrible. That's his wife's, right?
Yep.
So just because you may not sell to kids on TikTok, guess what? Those kids are influential in the buying process. So you want to make sure that you're casting a wide net and marketing to all the people that are, same in B2B, right? B2B decision making is not done in one decision, right? If you want to sell something to Mindfire and you only talk to Dave, low likelihood you're going to make it happen, right? You have to get everyone else involved. Yeah. You got to get everyone else involved, right? You got to get all the key stakeholders. And that's why when you take this process and you apply it to places like LinkedIn, you're able to get in front of more than just the one person, because that decision is not going to happen in isolation. Jennifer, yes, we will include the Q&A in the recording. Yes.
Mac, real quick on that also, I think is important for people to understand. When you understand the OptiChannel philosophy, the other thing that you have to remember, because I know some people say TikTok skews young. Do you remember how Facebook started? Who used Facebook in the beginning?
College students only.
It's 90-year-old grandmas. Apologies to any 90-year-old grandmas. My grandma is right there.
It's true.
On Facebook, right? Checking me out. What am I doing? What are my kids doing? What are grandkids doing? Staying engaged with their friends. And it's crazy. But these things skew young initially and then go up. Already on TikTok. Mac, I know you're a big TikTok. I mean, you got the dance moves. You got all that going on, girl, right? It's skewing older. Gronkowski, Tom Brady. If Tom Brady's my age, right? It's getting up there.
The other thing is, one of the big things is that the world is shifting. That's where we started the conversation almost 2 hours ago, right? The world is shifting. I just recently heard on this thing about e-commerce that the 65 and up population has like 10x their e-commerce purchases because of COVID, right? So previously, a lot of companies that marketed to the 65 age up, they're like, oh, we want to do this because that's where our audience skews. Well, COVID and all these different things has shaken that up, right? So again, like we talked about, instead of thinking, where am I? Where do I think? What you gotta get unemotional about those things and follow the attention of what people are actually doing and market to them effectively.
Mac, can I ask everyone else a question since we've been answering all the questions? And I see Matt just asked a great question. We'll get there in a second, but I got a couple questions for you folks. So now it's your turn to answer us, okay? Here's a question I have for you, and I often ask this. You probably have heard me ask this before if you've been with us. What I want to know is, what did you hear today? What did you learn today? What did you see today that was that aha moment for you, where you gained an insight or you gained a new perspective or you made a brain connection that was new for you, or that was the first time you had thought of something in that way? Take a moment, please, if this has been at all valuable to you, and give us that little gift. Drop that in the Zoom chat over on LinkedIn. If you're seeing us on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you happen to be. Let's see what we see here. Betty says, start slowly and build from there. Paul says, hijacking popular posts, shortcutting content curation. Okay.
What else?
Keep it going. The Snipply and BuzzSumo reminder. Good. From George. We know we need to change our sales and lead gen, says Brian. Brian, good for you. Brian, do we have time on the calendar to talk? If we can help with that, we'd be happy to. Jennifer says, from the very beginning of the webinar, use QR codes to connect with people on LinkedIn and then market organically to them. Jennifer is a student of the game. I can tell that already. That's wonderful, Jennifer. Thank you for mentioning that. Dean says, LinkedIn more viewers than content. Yup. No, other way. Yes, correct. You're right.
Yes.
Brett says your biggest competition is you doing nothing. It's the status quo.
True.
Yep.
It's true.
Yep. Just to see if this brings anybody any additional value, what I just did is I turned the chat on in Zoom. So you can, folks, if you talk to everyone, if you go to that little pull down where it says panelists right now, you can actually send a message to everyone if that's of interest to anybody. You can, I've opened it up for everybody. Leon said, excellent. Have heard it from you previously. The more times I hear it, the better for me. Okay. So one more question for you, as you get those remaining questions ready, Mackenzie. For everybody who's still here, a question for you. If you think that this kind of strategy might be helpful to you, what's keeping you from taking that next step? Whether that next step be, shut us down and you decide you're going to make this a reality in your organization, or the next step being, you go to that link and you set up some time to talk, whatever that next step is for you. What's keeping you from that? Why aren't you taking the next step? Think about that. I know it's a tough question. Brian says, we're looking forward to restarting our MindFire relationship. Oh, cool. Okay. I logged in on the website for consultation next week. Got to go have a 10:30 here with a client. Brian, that's wonderful.
Go get
Thank
him,
you,
Brian.
Thank you for letting us know that. And Brian, I take it you filled in the form. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. But for the rest of you who are here, if you're typing away, what's keeping you? What's in the way still? That's very helpful information for us. Mac, as they're doing that, what other questions are you seeing here?
I don't see any. I think we kind of went through all the questions. Let's see.
There was one from Matt that was quite interesting, I think. You want me to find that?
Yes. I must have missed it.
Yeah, no problem. So Matt said, Matt, are you still here? Matt, let's see, is Matt I? Yeah, Matt's still here.
Yes.
How do you encourage the leaders of your company?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to be ambassadors for their company on platforms like LinkedIn? They look more for ways for me to immediately monetize before wanting to jump in compared to the value of brand ambassadorship. You know, Matt, it starts, I think, with people having to understand how that process actually works. How, this OptiChannel philosophy is one where, the first step is you got to produce content in the modality that works best for you or your organization or for that leader. You got to produce value. And that means you can't be out there putting posts on LinkedIn that are just about, hey, our wide format is the best, or we print on Indigo, so we rock. You got to provide value to the reader. Yeah. And then third, you got to do it a lot more than you're doing right now. You got to be publishing daily in the right places. And then you have to know how to siphon content. So I would imagine that whoever you're referring to probably doesn't have that full picture. Maybe, I don't know, I'm speaking out of line here perhaps, but maybe you take one of the slides here and you print out that model, right? The one that we had on the screen, print out just that one page and sit down with him or her and say, this is what I've been learning. This is how it actually works. And we're doing 1/15 of what we actually should be doing. Yeah. So in order for you, Mr. Owner or leader, to really do what you want to do, here's what you should be doing. And I can help you do that. I don't know. What would you advise, Mackenzie?
Yeah, I would also say start doing it. I mean, let's be clear. I've never seen a leader or business owner turn down something when it's working, right? So sometimes it just takes you kind of taking that initiative and doing it and following the process. Even one little glimmer of hope, like, hey, I was able to get this inbound inquiry, or I spoke to a client recently that was able to get engagement from a company that they've never been able to penetrate, right? So sometimes it starts with you, right? It starts with you trying and starting and doing the stuff and saying, hey, look what I've been doing. Can you help me scale this out? I think this would be helpful to our business. As everyone says, but it's important to remember, come to me or come to your leader with solutions, not problems. Not, hey, Dave, we can't figure out our sales and we don't know how to use LinkedIn. Hey, Dave, LinkedIn presents a huge opportunity for us to do better and social sell to adapt to the modern times. I found this course that's going to help us do that. Let's get started, right? Dave's going to respond much better to that than, Dave, we don't know what to do. Can you go try to figure out how it's going to help us, right? Dave's time and everyone's time is valuable. Bring me solutions, not problems.
Betty says, I have to leave. Can I still get the book mentioned at the start? Absolutely, Betty. Definitely. Have a good rest of your day, Betty. Thanks for being here with us. We really value your time, and we know that it's not insignificant. So thank you for that.
Question for you, Dave.
Yes.
Oh, how much time does this take daily?
How much time does this take daily? Is that from Dean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dean, if you're just getting started, it only takes a few minutes a day. The whole playbook, as you'll come to learn if you take steps into this process, is something that you can do. You could probably spend 12 hours a day doing it, but I know we don't have that kind of time. So what I would recommend you think about is something like, when you're getting started, some time in the morning and some time in the evening. And then add some time in the middle of the day. So maybe 3 times a day where you are either producing content and pushing it out there, or the other part of it being where you're engaging with your audience. Yeah, that's really important. Most people publish content and then they just walk away and leave it there, right?
Hey, we didn't talk about this, but can you say this? The trade show lunch table rule. I love this, and I think it's really important. I think everyone needs to hear it.
So Dean, what Mackenzie's talking about is this idea of, when you're publishing content out there, or when you're approaching people on LinkedIn or any of the social networks, a lot of people clam up and say things like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 71 hours a day to do all of this. Or, what do I say to somebody when they actually respond to me, or when they comment in my post? What do I say? And so I often remind them that, look, back in the day when we would go to trade shows, and I know we're starting to be able to do that more and more these days, but do you remember, Dean and everybody else, you would have lunch around the noon hour, right? And they would put these tables together for us to network. Usually, you would eat in 30 or 40 minutes.
Right.
And when you would sit down at those tables, most of us, not all of us, but most of us would look to our left, look to our right, and start talking to people, right? Have a little chit chat, just converse. Two things. Number one, you don't immediately go into pitching them. At least I hope you don't do that. I don't like when people immediately start pitching me. I assume you don't either. So on social, you should act the same way. Act as if you're sitting down at the networking table. Second, how long did it take for you to have a conversation where then maybe they gave you their business card or say, hey, talk to me later. Here's my card. It doesn't take a lot of time to have an organic conversation and then have the other person ask you for a little bit more information about you, right? So the same thing is true on LinkedIn. You don't have to be spending 71 hours a day on LinkedIn. I'm exaggerating, of course, right? You don't have to be pitchy. You don't have to be salesy. Be social, be you, be human, talk to people, provide them value, and this stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the big takeaway there is for people that are wondering, sometimes people go on social because they're behind a screen and they act a different way, meaning they start all of a sudden, hey, have you, and you tell me, everyone who's here, we have a lot of people still here. Have you gotten a message recently in your LinkedIn inbox that there's some person you've never met before that writes you this email that wants to sell you something within sentence one? How do you respond to that? Probably not well, right? So you gotta treat, this is human to human. Just because you have a screen separating you doesn't mean you should go rogue, acting like you can go pitch everyone and anyone, right? Someone, as an example, someone recently on a post to me said, will you take a demo with our company? This happened yesterday. I said, I would be happy to take a demo with your company if you feel like it's going to help Mindfire and it's going to be a good use of your time. That company I happen to know does exactly what we do also. So that person didn't take 10 seconds to go to my profile and look what I do. They saw me writing a long response to someone's post and just put that same message to everyone else, right? Take the time to look at the people you're talking to. Connect with them in some way, have a conversation, be a human, right? And then the sales comes naturally as they get value from you, as they know you, like you, trust you, and they want to engage with you on those things, right?
All right, I'm putting that link back up there on the screen. If anybody is interested in talking further, I don't know if we have any spots left, but go check it out there. Go to www.mindfiremarketing.com/yes. If you need to check out or get on with your day, totally understand. Please say goodbye to us first before you do that there in Zoom. I want to make sure I hear from you before you leave, and I have an opportunity to thank you for being here. Same thing in LinkedIn, same thing in Facebook. Mindfire team, if you don't mind, put that link in there one more time. Thank you, everybody who's still here. If you haven't taken time, Nadine and Paul and the others, to put time on our calendar, and if you think this is something that you might need help with or you might be interested in applying, let's talk. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? Anything else we can do to help? Anything else? Jennifer says, thank you. Looking forward to learning more. Jennifer, did you request time on the calendar? I think you did, Jennifer. I think I saw yours flash by the screen. Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
Awesome. Rusty, how about you? Okay. Jennifer says, yes, I see Rusty still here. Rusty's actually logged in twice. That's how interested Rusty is.
Really?
That's good. Brett, Caesar, David, a couple Davids here, Doug, George, James.
He's Opti-casting.
He's Opti attending, I guess. Terry, Rich, Mike, Matt, still here, Leon, Krista,
Carrie, Kathleen, Jose, John, Jennifer.
Yeah. Great seminar. I will circulate it at Sinocan. Good day. All right. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Dean, for being here. Appreciate that. All right. What other questions you guys have? If not, we will. Gosh, we've been here quite a while today, Mackenzie.
Yep.
Carrie, thank you for your time. Carrie, it looks like you have a comma after the thanks there, so I'm wondering if there's a little bit more coming there. Let us know. Jennifer says, thank you. Hopping off. Appreciate all your expertise. Jennifer, thank you. We do it for you, Jennifer. Leon says, thank you. Leaving now. Thank you, Leon. It's always good to see you. Tell Lauren I said hi. Carrie says, thick finger. No problem. No problem. All right.
Speaking of thick finger, Carrie, we should tell you about the iPhone email strategy. We'll talk about that sometime. Ask us
maybe sometime at the next
either
session.
Text Dave or email or something like that.
Brett says I have to get going. Have a wonderful weekend, Dave Mackenzie. I appreciate you both. Matt says thank you.
Appreciate you.
All right, awesome. Well, Mackenzie, I'll give you closing words today.
I was gonna put you in the spotlight, but I never beat you to it. So I said this last time, but I don't know, it kind of just resonates with me. And if you get to know me, you'll kind of start to see that I bring in more of the fluffy, flowery heart stuff related to all this. But as Dave illustrated over the last 2 hours with lots of data to back it up, right? You are sitting on a huge opportunity, right? This is serious. It is exciting, but it's serious. You are sitting on a huge opportunity right now for you and or for your customers. Don't look back in 2 years from now and say, shoot, why didn't I take action then, right? Let's not play that out. Dave sometimes asks me, hey, forward shadow. He makes me do this exercise, which I think is really awesome. Forward shadow to 6 months from now. If we're sitting, pretend 6 months from now, we're sitting together saying, we screwed up. Try to think about why we screwed up and then reverse engineer to make sure we don't screw up today, right? And so what I'm telling you to do is do that same thing. Picture yourself in a year from now, having not taken this opportunity, missing that $2.3 trillion of spend that people want to spend with your company and your customers' companies. What is it that you aren't doing now or that you failed to start to where in the future, you missed that boat? And now remember that you didn't miss the boat, right? You're sitting on a huge opportunity. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow, right? Don't just get excited on a Friday, come Monday, do nothing. What are you going to do to take advantage of this opportunity to help your company, to help your family, to help your clients' companies and all their families, right? And I'm going to leave you with that. I want you to take what we're doing today and take action on it so that a year from now, you don't say, shoot, we missed the boat. That's all I got, Dave.
All right. Fantastic words. That's great, Mackenzie. Thank you, Mackenzie, for sharing our story. Thank you for being so gracious with your time. Even bigger thank you to everybody who's still here and everyone who has been here. If you're watching the recording of this, thank you for watching. We appreciate you. We do this for you folks. Every Friday morning, we gather this community, and it's exciting, but it's also an honor. And so we're just very appreciative of you. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day and a fantastic weekend. Stay well, everyone.
Yes.